My name is Elora. From a very young age, I felt something inside me that was different from others. While other children played with toys, I found myself drawn to colors. I did not know why, but every time I saw a blank piece of paper, I felt an urge to bring it to life. My hands moved instinctively, sketching lines and shapes that only I could understand. But back then, I had no idea that this small hobby would one day become the core of my existence. I grew up in a small town where life was simple and expectations were strict. My parents, both hardworking individuals, believed in practical careers. My father was a businessman and my mother was a school teacher. They always told me that education was the most important thing in life and that a career should be stable. To them, art was nothing more than a pastime, something that could never bring success. But for me, art was everything. I remember the first time I picked up a pencil and started drawing seriously. It was a simple sketch of a flower. The moment I saw how my hands could create something so beautiful, I felt a rush of excitement. It was as if I had discovered a new world, one where I could express my emotions without speaking a single word. However, my passion was not welcomed at home. My parents saw my drawings as a distraction. They told me that artists struggled to survive, that there was no future in painting. Whenever I tried to show them my work, they would dismiss it as a waste of time. It hurt me deeply, but I could not let go of my dream. Since I had no support from my family, I had to find my own way. I began borrowing art books from the school library, studying every stroke and technique I could find. I observed everything around me. The way sunlight fell on leaves, the movement of people in the streets, the subtle changes in the sky during sunset. Every moment became an inspiration. I did not have expensive art supplies, so I made do with whatever I could find. I collected used pencils, borrowed old brushes, and even made my own colors by mixing natural ingredients. I painted on old newspapers, on the backs of used notebooks, and even on pieces of discarded wood. At school, I was often seen as the quiet girl who always had a sketchbook. Some of my classmates appreciated my talent, while others mocked me for wasting my time. But none of that mattered because, deep inside, I knew this was my purpose. One day, I found an old art teacher in my neighborhood. His name was Mr. Laurent. He was a retired painter who had once exhibited his work in famous galleries. When I gathered the courage to show him my sketches, he smiled and told me that I had potential. That day changed my life. Mr. Laurent did not just teach me how to paint. He taught me how to see the world through an artist's eyes. He showed me how to blend colors, how to create depth, and how to bring emotion into my work. I spent hours watching him work, absorbing every detail. But learning from him was not easy. My parents did not approve, so I had to lie about where I was going. Every evening, after finishing my schoolwork, I would sneak out and visit his small studio. There, I felt free. I could express myself without fear of judgment. One night, my father found out. He was furious. He tore up my paintings and told me to focus on my studies. That night, I cried myself to sleep, feeling as if my dreams had been crushed. But something inside me refused to give up. I knew that if I wanted to be an artist, I had to fight for it. I started waking up early to practice before school. I saved whatever little money I could find to buy art supplies. I entered every art competition I could find, hoping to prove myself. Some days I felt hopeless. Some days I wanted to give up. But every time I held a brush in my hand, I remembered why I started. One day, an art contest was announced in my town. The winner would get a scholarship to an art school. It was my only chance. I worked tirelessly on my painting, pouring all my emotions into it. When the results were announced, I could hardly believe my ears. I had won. That was the moment my parents saw my passion for what it truly was. They still did not fully understand, but they saw the determination in my eyes. They agreed to let me study art, on one condition: I had to promise that I would never give up, no matter how hard the journey became. That promise became my driving force. It was not just about proving myself to them anymore. It was about proving to myself that I could turn my dream into reality. Winning the art contest was just the beginning. The scholarship I received gave me the opportunity to study in a proper art school, something I had never imagined possible. For the first time in my life, I stepped into a place where everyone around me shared the same passion. The smell of paint, the sound of brushes against canvas, the walls covered with magnificent artworks, it felt like home. But success did not come easily. Even though I had won the contest, I realized that I still had a long way to go. My new classmates were talented, some even more skilled than I was. Their strokes were more refined, their understanding of colors deeper. For a moment, I felt like I did not belong. But then I reminded myself why I had fought so hard to get here. I worked harder than ever before. I spent hours in the studio, practicing different techniques. I experimented with oil paints, acrylics, watercolors, anything I could get my hands on. I learned about different art movements, from realism to abstract, trying to find my own style. My professors guided me, but the real learning came from my failures. Every mistake taught me something new. Despite my dedication, financial struggles followed me. My scholarship covered tuition, but not art supplies. Brushes, paints, and canvases were expensive. While other students could afford the best materials, I had to be creative. I used old fabric as canvas, made my own brushes from worn-out materials, and mixed colors carefully to make them last. To earn money, I started painting portraits for people. I set up a small stand in the local park, offering to paint anyone who wanted a unique memory captured on canvas. At first, people walked past without noticing, but slowly, word spread. People started appreciating my work. Some would sit for hours, telling me their stories as I painted them. Those conversations taught me that art was not just about technique. It was about capturing emotions, memories, and life itself. My first big breakthrough came when a local gallery invited me to exhibit my paintings. It was a small event, but for me, it was everything. Seeing my paintings displayed on a wall, with people admiring them, was a feeling beyond words. That night, I sold my first painting. The moment the buyer handed me the money, I realized something important. Art could be more than just a passion. It could be my future. From that day on, I started taking commissions. I painted for restaurants, small businesses, and private collectors. Each piece I created carried a part of me, and with every painting, I felt closer to my dream. But the biggest lesson I learned was that success in art was not just about talent. It was about persistence. There were days when I doubted myself, days when I felt my work was not good enough. There were rejections, criticisms, and moments of complete exhaustion. But I kept going, because every great artist had once been a beginner. As years passed, my work gained recognition. Bigger galleries started noticing me, and I was invited to showcase my work in exhibitions. My paintings were no longer just artworks, they became stories. People connected with them, saw their own emotions reflected in the colors and strokes. Eventually, I reached a point where I could fully support myself through my art. The fear of financial instability faded away. I had proven to my parents, and most importantly to myself, that art was not a foolish dream. It was a career, a life. With my success, I realized I wanted to give back. I remembered the struggles I had faced, the lack of guidance, the rejection, the financial hardships. I did not want other young artists to feel lost the way I had. So I started teaching. At first, I taught small groups of students in my studio. But soon, my classes grew. More students came, eager to learn, eager to create. Some were beginners, some had natural talent, but all of them shared the same passion that I once had. Teaching became a new kind of fulfillment. Watching my students learn, improve, and find their own artistic voices was a joy I had never experienced before. Some of them were young children who simply wanted to explore colors. Some were adults who had abandoned their dreams long ago but had found the courage to pick up a brush again. One of the most memorable moments was when a young girl, no older than 10, came to me with a trembling voice and a sketchbook full of drawings. She reminded me of myself. Her parents, just like mine, did not believe in her dream. But I saw the same fire in her eyes that I once had. I took her under my wing, guiding her step by step. Years later, she held her own exhibition. And when she stood in front of her paintings, smiling with pride, I knew I had made a difference. I started organizing free workshops, especially for underprivileged children. I knew that talent had no boundaries, but opportunities did. Some of these children had never held a real paintbrush before. Watching their faces light up as they painted their first masterpiece was more rewarding than any exhibition. Through my art, I had found my independence. I was no longer bound by societal expectations. I had carved my own path, created my own world. And now I was helping others do the same. To those who dream of becoming artists, I say this: do not give up. Your journey will not be easy. There will be moments of doubt, moments of struggle. People will tell you it is impossible, that art cannot be a career. But if your heart beats for it, if you cannot imagine a life without it, then fight for it. Success is not measured by how many paintings you sell or how much money you make. It is measured by the impact you create, the lives you touch, and the emotions you bring to the world through your work. My journey started with a single sketch on an old piece of paper. Today, my paintings hang in galleries, homes, and hearts across the world. But beyond that, my greatest achievement is knowing that I never gave up on my dream. And neither should you.